Afternoon. I am, as it says up there, I go by Chris anyway. And I was the manager at GW at the time Dr. Alley began his implementation process. So I guess that's why I'm still here. I'm not the manager currently. I've given up management and I get to just do patient care, which I enjoy a lot. So traditionally, I'm going to basically, this is a historic lecture, okay? Because there are commercially available bubble CPAP setups. Back in the day, okay, that's why this is a history lesson, retro, old school, however you think of it, we had to make our own, okay? The benefit of sharing this with you, okay, is not that you will ever need to make one, hopefully, if your supplies come regularly, but you could. And here you are. If you know what you're doing to put it together, it's really hard to not know the theory behind what's going on. Because a lot of reactions from a respiratory therapy perspective is when the baby starts doing bad, it's that machine. It's not that the baby's sicker, which just seems to me the most likely thing is the most likely answer. This is a sick baby to start with. But traditionally, I bring up whatever I had for breakfast as a possibility. We could use this to create the bubble CPAP endpoint, okay? Most of you have something plastic probably on your desk. The water bottles are a little small, but they could be made into this. And that's something when we did a lot of teaching with nurses, they would fly in from foreign countries and neonatologists from foreign countries. Usually this applies really easily to a third world setting. To let them know that they don't have to spend their money on that little endpoint with their very limited budgets. It's possible just to make it, okay? I don't have any financial things. One of these things is gonna make this move. So we'll go from there. I'm gonna put my glasses on so I make sure I read my notes and not just give it from the get-go. So the expiratory bottle, there's no magic to the plastic at the end. It's all personal preference. There was one out there you can use. I will be back there, can demonstrate, will let you, if you're a tactile learner, touch it, put it together, think it through in your brain how you would put it together. I also have 2 examples back there of commercially available ones. That is just a personal preference or what you would like to do. So, from a respiratory therapist perspective, okay, this is not a mode of ventilation to add to your bag of tricks. Okay, respiratory loves all those little dials, and there's this mode and that mode and this mode and that mode. What we're talking about is that all of the stakeholders can agree on the culture of this unit. From nursing to neonatologist to respiratory to, in some units, physical therapists. Everybody can agree that this is our primary way that we deal with it. Because the cliche is that a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. It is much more likely to break if one of those stakeholders isn't locked in to this as the way to do it, okay? Anyway, here we go. This is pretty basic stuff. This is a how-to of how to make a bubble CPAP unit from very limited things, okay? I've narrowed it down. Hopefully during this time we'll share with you in just 20 minutes or so how to do it. If you come to the seminar, the actual workshop, you can take it apart, put it together, whatever. You can look through this slide if you can. You'll be able to explain where the gas starts all the way through the baby to where the gas ends, okay? And to know where the most likely places are for the CPAP to be interrupted, okay? That'll be handled under the discussing troubleshooting. There's also an older parts list, And parts, now that I'm not in management, I don't really keep track of what the widget number is for this little piece of equipment. You'd have to sit down with your buyers and figure that out if you were to go down this route. Most likely, you will just buy a commercially available one. And I'm available for questions. There's a lot more time for that in the workshop time to answer individual questions. So, back in the day, this is what we had at the bedside. Okay? Now, this doesn't guarantee that your baby is getting bubble CPAP, but it increases the probability a lot. Okay? So, because if the nares are pinched, if the bronchs are pinched, if there's a disconnect or a leak, most likely the baby's mouth, that bubbling can stop. Because the bubble stopped, it's not 100% guarantee that it's not being transmitted to the baby, but it increases the percentages a lot. When you don't see that vigorous bubbling, and especially in larger babies, you will see the actual column in that blue tube inside the water there doing this. It's just not quite coming out. So there's still a certain amount of CPAP being delivered. You can see the inspiratory effort moving that column, okay? All right, so broke it down into 5 steps. Yep, 5 steps. Starting as I do from a therapist, I tend to work from the wall, past the baby to expiration. Some people work from the baby back. Somebody's phone buzzed. Mine might buzz. I have it turned off because it's the fantasy football championships are on. So if it goes off, I apologize. I can turn it off, but some notifications don't get turned off, and I'm not that clever. So the blender to the humidifier, the inspiratory and expiratory limb, the actual building of the bubble assembly, and then testing it, okay? Start with a blender. In Dr. Wong's slides, he showed you the calculations for making a little chart for making FiO2 from a tank or from without a blender. You most likely won't have to deal with that. Most likely, unless you're in a third world country, provides the FiO2 and the flow. Okay. A heater assembly to add humidity. The gas comes out of the wall, 0 humidity and cold. Not the best of either situation for our babies. So we're going to humidify it, warm it up, okay? The humidifier assembly has these pieces. We'll go through how to put them together. I narrowed it down to 5 pieces. If you go, there is a nipple adapter. Because it comes off the wall, you usually use a supply tubing, which is a very narrow gauge. We usually put a T-piece in line because we would always just keep an analyzer on board. Some places don't do that. They just check them periodically. Most blenders are pretty accurate. You can sort of look at it and you're pretty darn close. But we just kept it in line as a general link. We always put an air filter, in line. The reason for that is back in the hospital that was built in the 50s, GW, had water in the airlines. And no amount of fussing as a manager, we could get that out of there. That's a really great medium for growing things. Cultured every year, never grew anything, but just in case something started growing and it's 3 months away before we were going to check it, we put a filter in line just because. And we used a 22 outside diameter to make it all fit together nice and clean. And the humidifier is a Fisher-Paykel, you could use whatever. And you get that right there. For those of you who like to read to learn, if you're really quick and I'll move to the next slide, you can read how to do it. Me, I'm a tactile learner. I take my fingers, I put it together, then I know it. But however you do it, here we are. You put those pieces together, you come up with the humidifier assembly. Back when I did this, we had just transitioned from Fisher-Paykel 750s to 850s. You may use even other numbers now. Back in the day, somebody in respiratory land decided that the inspiratory side of a circuit should be blue and the expiratory side should be color. There's no reason for that. Don't know why. And you'll see that we changed that, and the reason will be pretty obvious, I think. So there we go. This supplies the gas from that heater assembly that we just made, directs it to the baby, bronchs, expiration towards the bubble chamber. Likewise, we used acetic acid. It was the same cost at the time. Don't know about today. As I said, I'm not in the manager world right now. But at the time, acetic acid was the same price as buying a bottle of sterile water, cost to the department, so we used the acetic acid upon request of Dr. Alley. And you'll see in the bubble chamber there that inside the chamber we change back to blue. And the reason for that is just because when it's clear, it's really hard to see. Okay? No special reason. Inspiratory and expiratory limb, the color was arbitrary. So you also see at the top of the chamber on the left side of your screen, I have to think because that's different for me and you, there's a hole cut into it. There's a hospital in Baltimore, GBMC, I think. They don't cut a hole in it. They just put something in the top of there to secure that, and then the expiratory gas comes out the top of the bottle. But it has to have somewhere to go to get back to the atmosphere. So either one of those, it's really would be up to you. The commercially available ones, they're built in. And there's 5 pieces. There's a piece of tape, which we would take the tape, cut it at 8 centimeters, turn it over, tape the 0 where we wanted the water level, going down to 8. Dr. Alley originally wanted 7, but I brought him the cheapest bottle of the month, and whatever was cheaper, they're all manufactured slightly differently, and the underside of the bottle extends up into it. So sometimes, if it was too long, it would be hitting the plastic at the bottom, so we had to make a few changes there with that number. There's the blue, and then there's these adapters to make it connect snugly. We decided that for us, the best was to have the top of the bottle where the tubing comes in secure and snug, so that it was always, if we wanted it at 5, it was at 5, and there was no chance of it pulling out or advancing with people moving around the bedside and bumping it. Like I said, this isn't an issue with the commercially available ones, but it was at the time. So it's very snug in the bottle at the top, and we cut a hole. Like I said, GBMC at the time, and I haven't been up there in a while, had something like a pencil or some kind of thing to hold it in place. And then the bottle, there's the acetic acid. And you put them together, that's how verbally you would do it. These slides are available online if you were to need to look through it. That. Okay, so at this point, you have all the pieces you need to put it together. The blender, the flow goes to the humidifier. From the humidifier, it goes to the baby through the blue line, okay? After it passes across the baby's nose, when they want it, they breathe in. The flow then is directed to the baby. When they begin their exhale, the flow continues across from the baby, so they're just having to negotiate right there to trigger the flow to come to them, as opposed to if you were using a machine, they're having to go through, most likely, depending on what kind of machine you're using, 3 feet of tubing or some kind of flow change and some reading to get the readings that you want, get it triggered. But with this, it's simple, it's straightforward. The baby breathes in, the flow goes this way. Baby exhales, the flow continues across the top of the cannula. Goes from there to the bubble. If you put this expiratory limb under 5 centimeters of water, you have to push 5 centimeters of water for it to come out. Straightforward. In the very, very beginning, so that my therapist would grasp that, we actually put a manometer on for a short period of time, and then the manometer did this. 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, and with each bubble release, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6. We agreed that that was 5, okay? So, you can, if you believe, and I'd love somebody to prove it, that the oscillator effect of those bubble releases, because if you put your hand on the expiratory limb, you can feel each bubble release. You can feel that, or if you turn the flow up, it changes, okay? It is easier on smaller babies because they don't have as large an inspiratory volume. Okay, and then you need to let it get to the atmosphere in some way, okay? Whether it's a hole, which isn't as elegant as the top, but anyway. At the bedside, this is what would be waiting for the baby to come from the stabilization area. A bubble CPAP, and you have to pinch the nares, tape them, whatever. That this unit, as it stands, is ready to go. It's ready to put on, okay? Troubleshooting. As I said, I tend to start from the wall and work to the baby. That's probably not the best, but that's just the way it is generally, because a lot of people, maybe that's to counteract the fact that the baby's not doing well. I don't know why you don't look at the baby, but they're looking at my machine, so I want to make sure that what I'm doing is working, okay? The number one leak in my experience is the mouth, and they've talked about chin straps and different things. It's amazing how quickly they learn that if they keep their mouth shut, they don't have to work as hard. I don't know how they figure that all out. They're just wee little things, and their brains are just like an acorn, but they figure it out, that if they keep their mouth shut, they don't have to work so hard. And there's some people that could learn from that. Make sure all the connections are tight. Make sure that the prongs are not too small, okay? Like it can leak around here, okay? That's definitely possible. And run from the wall, making sure that there are no leaks. That generally will cover most of your issues. These questions. So, gas flow through the bubble CPAP system could best be described, this is Jeopardy, by which of the following the gas source? A, you can read, I'm not going to read it all out. B, C, or none of the above. How many for A? B, couple. C, none. Okay. The bubble CPAP device goes from the wall, gas source, to the heater, to the inspiratory limb, to the baby, to the expiratory limb, to the bubble CPAP device, to the atmosphere. That would be C. And I think that's the answer. Yay. And there's a picture of what I just said, which you've already seen. Does bubbling in the final bubble bottle assembly guarantee that CPAP is being transmitted to your baby? True or false? If it's bubbling, my baby's getting CPAP. No. The areas are closed or the prongs are closed. It will bubble. It will bubble. Baby's not getting nada. What's the best way to know whether your baby's getting something or not? Get your ears out and listen, because you can hear that transmitted, okay? And you should always be listening to make sure that your baby is getting what you think they're getting, especially if they start to take that turn, okay? And last but not least, it's been said, I've heard it a couple times in this day, is never trade FiO2 for CPAP. Now, I work in a facility where they don't use bubble CPAP currently. Maybe they never will, but they use Vapotherm and they do the same thing, and they turn the flow down and they turn the FiO2 up. And I said, what did you gain? You increased a possibly toxic drug. Does that sound good? Doesn't sound good to me. As long as your baby's on 21%, you come up with a standard that says, we will try to wean, but if we need to raise the FiO2, we didn't gain anything, we go back. Because we're not going to deliver a possibly damaging drug if we don't have to. Okay? Can't say that enough. I was like in the back going, yes. Okay. And that was false, and those are reasons why it might not be getting there. I'll ask you to defer questions to the workshop time. If you have any, I'd be more than happy to try to deal with this. And I talked to a couple respiratory therapists at lunch, and they have their work cut out for them because not everybody's on the same team about it. And it has to have everybody involved on the same team. All righty. Thank you.
this 480 gram, okay? So this is our transitional nursery. So we know this baby is coming, okay? So we prepare. But sometimes we have a patient, the delivery, the bed, we bring here, we resuscitate. So this baby kinking, moving like that, he can do that, he can breathe. So give him a chance. You see, this our fellow, so his hand is so big. And this baby kinking, moving, that he listens to the heartbeat. That's unnecessary, right? So he's occlude the view. Later you see I push his hand away. Okay. See, I'm not just talking, I walk too, you know. Okay, I think I push his hand away now. Come on. Okay. All right, so you quickly dry the baby and you put a CPAP plug on. All right? So now you're going to put a head so this may come out, right? So you just ask anybody assistant that is a resident went to the delivery room, bring me to the baby here. So I ask him to hold the plug. All you need is 3 fingers, okay? Thumb and the index, middle finger on the chin, and just on the plug. Baby move, just stay with the plug so you can fix the head. Okay, see this resident 3 fingers, right? So you have an extra hand, you can put a EKG, you can put an O2 sat in the right hand. On that one, that's one the press. If you use design, if you use a respirator to measure the pressures. So the baby, doesn't matter how small, they give them a chance, okay? And you find you're surprised, many of them can be just near CPAP. Okay, so his O2 sat 95, so you can decrease FiO2, respiration rate, and just EK heart rate. So after you do all this, then the next thing we'll put this size baby, we'll probably put a UAC in. Okay, UAC is in. Okay, so that's a blood pressure. All right. If this doesn't impress you, let's see the next one.
Dr. Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked.
Oh, you doesn't work it like that. Yeah, it's got the next one. Yeah.
When is your plane?
Hmm?
Your plane is
Okay. So this baby, precipitate delivery in bed. So the obstetrician dropped this to us. His APGAR score is 1. Okay, so he need to resuscitate. And when you resuscitate, don't just put a mask and ambu. You have to make sure the chest excursion. She doesn't respond. I'm the one taking the video. See? So I took over. Okay, couple pup, baby, moving, kicking like that, so he can be on CPAP. So the baby, even after resuscitation, then you watch and see how they breathe, you can put on a CPAP. And that's in premature babies often. If obstetrician take a little bit longer to deliver a baby, they're almost all near resuscitation. So you resuscitate, and when they recover, they can moving like that, it's okay. So, 700 grams is not small for us. So I think the nurse will take a little bit longer time to suction, okay? And now the baby become depressed again. So at this point, you can just stimulate baby, or you pick up ambu back, get him back again, and then put a CPAP. Okay.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm doing it. Why don't you measure while I'm doing it?
Okay. So this is magnified. So it looks like we stimulate, but we are not really just rough.
Can you, come on. Can you, I need, I'm turning, I am, Jim, but I'm holding this.
So that's not that's not a gasping. He's crying. His baby's still crying.
Can you just close the door if you don't mind? I don't know. And I don't feel like your job as a spectator. No, I know, but I'm just not you. I'll come back. You're the first pediatrician that doesn't have to. Oh, yeah, Chris will think.
So the fellow is discussing what's the APGAR score they want to put. So the ultrasound, so you can decrease, so 50% you can decrease The FiO2, the O2 side is high. Okay, both this baby doesn't need no intubation. They're only on CPAP. So he's here crying, okay? Okay. Well, thank you.